Good morning. This is Kathy Withers from Withers Wool. Today I was going to talk about blankets. When I decided to do this last week, I was actually working on this blanket right here, trying to finish it, and mostly what I had to do was finish the ends. Well, I kind of decided that would be my topic for this week, and I was kind of amazed at how many blankets I actually had made over the years. I've sold a bunch, given away a bunch, and lo and behold, I still have a lot. So this one here, the pattern is going to go online this afternoon since I have finished it, and I can now photograph it, and it will look beautiful. So that was my most recently finished. This one right here is already on witherswool.etsy.com, and I actually put it on the Withers Wool page because it's more of a shawl than a blanket, but it's the size of a lap blanket, so it's kind of cool. And I showed it a little bit in a previous video, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. This one right here, I finished yesterday. All I really had to do was do the fringes on the end, so that has been done. So this will go in the wash today. And pretty much most of these are actually going to go on my Art Weaving Etsy page because they're more expensive and they kind of fit in that category more than they do on my Withers Wool, which is mostly yarns, roving, and things for do-it-yourself. So what I'm currently also working on is this one right here, which I have, I think I have 12 more rows to go and it will be finished. I've named it the Spring Floral Blanket, and I'll have a pattern for that one also after I finish it. This one right here, if you've been watching me for a while, you will have seen it before. This is another lap blanket. It's knitted, and it's kind of knitted in a log cabin style pattern. I used a very heavyweight yarn, so it weighs close to 3 pounds. And I used yarn that was thick and thin. So it's actually a 2-ply. I don't do that very often, but in this case, I kind of did. And it was, for me, it was a quick, easy spin, and I just loved the way it flew through my hands as I spun. But spinning it, I also realized that it was not next to the skin, so accessories was the way to go. And I actually went with a blanket on this one. So other things I have, this is another blanket. I actually finished this one quite a while ago. I tend to be kind of slow about putting finished goods online because I have to think about how much work I put into it and how much are people really willing to pay. And sometimes I compromise in between, and then sometimes it's kind of like a case of this one here has more of the feel of kid mohair, so I kind of went on the slightly higher side where not quite what it ought to be. Then this one here is one I'm going to finish up today. You can see that all I have to do with this one is do the edges, and that requires concentration and being in the right mood because when I want to twist them, I want them to be the same length and the same amount of twist. And if you're hurried, or if I'm hurried rather, one end will be seriously twisted and the other will not. So I have to be in a relaxed mood to do it. Then moving on to the next thing, I'm hoping you get some ideas out of this. So I'm going to tilt this up so you can see the wall hanging there that's got the blue that kind of mimics the clouds and the green on the bottom that kind of mimics the, they were actually supposed to be prickly pear cactus. So they're actually super coils that I ended up crocheting onto the surface. When I originally made this is actually was supposed to be a lap blanket. I used 10 strands using a size 35 needle, and it was actually, I probably think about 30 to 40 inches wide. Well, it kind of became something that, oh, I don't want to throw that on the floor, and I'm not going to put it on the couch because the cats will be all over it. So I actually went and hung it up, and over time, as it hung up, the width became less, and the length became like 20 inches longer. So it changed shape and size, but I was okay with that because I kind of wanted to create the idea of a southwestern landscape because at the time I was living in Arizona. So that's where the prickly pear came in. The ground was sandy. It was not, it wasn't the green grass that you see here on the East Coast. Then there was a mountain range in the distance, and it had that brownish color to it. And then I pulled the color of the sky. This is all based on a photograph that I had taken. And the pinkish part faded into the blue, and then I added the blue and white supercoils on top to mimic the idea of clouds in the sky, and there weren't very many, so that was that. That one there weighs 3.25 pounds. From there, I went to this one right here. And this one, I actually started it while I still lived out in Arizona. And the reason I made it is because everybody was saying, well, a lot of my visitors were people from the East Coast or somewhere where they had a greener outlook on life. So they suggested that I do something with green pastures, etc. So I actually started this one out in Arizona. Well, I liked the one that I did before that I used skeins that were variegated, which gave me the variation in colors. And I liked the 10 yarns at a time, but I kind of felt like this one would be either a heavier lap blanket or a rug, and I wasn't going to hang it on the wall, so I decided that 12 strands of yarn would work better. So all of this is 12 hand spun. It's 12 singles that I held together, and as one kind of ran out, I added another one kind of in the same colors. But I started with a paler green for the grass at the bottom. The hills and the mountains in the background were a much deeper green. And on this one, I kind of experimented with the idea of pulling in the blues for the sky so that the horizon wouldn't be a straight line. And so then I had multiples of blue. This one here took me, I want to say 2 years to do. And the reason why is because it was pretty heavy. I'd run out of yarn, have to go spin some more yarn. And you really have to sit on the couch when you work on something this big because it's pretty heavy. In fact, I weighed it last night just out of curiosity, and it weighs 8.7 pounds. A lot. I do have 2 sets of the size 35 knitting needles that I bought to resell. I don't want to list them on my Etsy page because there's all these things that you have to do if you're selling someone else's stuff, and I don't want to do that. So these are available here in the shop. You can send me an email, come here and pick them up, but I'm not going to ship them anywhere, and I'm not going to list them on Etsy because it just doesn't fit my style. Then, among other things I have is if you look at the bottom portion of, well, you can actually see it even at the top. You can see that the blue thing the red thing hanging over the door there has a variety of different textures. I kind of used the class weave effect. I used singles that I hand spun, thick and thins that I hand spun, and did it very randomly. I call it a freeform style. Some people would call it soury. It doesn't really matter, but it was kind of cool, and it's actually up there on the top, and you can see the red rod coming out of it because my intentions is to finish this up and use it in one of the 2 rooms that we've built here in the barn for people to stay in. And when my husband retires, we're thinking of using those 2 rooms up there as an Airbnb, but with the current climate situation, I'm not doing that right now. Okay, so then I have a couple other blankets that I made here. This is one that I made a long time ago while I was in Arizona, and it was on my website at one time for sale. Now I'm going to list it on Etsy. It's kind of like a double weave, and it's really cool. This one has a story. I was driving home from, this was years ago, in Arizona from dropping my son off to school, and I got a call from some place out in Arizona, and I won't name the film, but they wanted me to make 8 of these in red, white, and black within a month. Not going to happen. And I thought about it afterwards and thought, oh, I can get a whole bunch of friends to help me out and we could do it, but that was kind of hindsight, and I certainly didn't want to try to do this one again. This one here is out of Cotswold. It's very rustic. It's a great thing to throw on a bed or a couch. You certainly wouldn't want to have it next to your skin, because Cotswold, I've always heard being described as the poor man's mohair, and it's probably true. This is the first blanket that I did out of hand spun, and it took forever because I did not have a drum carder or an electric carder or anything at that point, and I wasn't sending my fiber out. So I actually hand carded this with the Ashford hand cards, and I want to tell you, it took a really long time. Behind it, I have one that is a blend of kid mohair and Shetland. It is actually twin size, and it is available already on Etsy on my art weaving page. And then this last one here, or actually it's not the last, but the last of the big ones. This one also is twin size, and this is 100% kid mohair, and it took 2 entire kid fleeces to make it, so quite a lot. And then before I started working with hand spun, I actually wove with cotton, and I gave it to my parents. This one I won't be selling, but they both passed away, and when I went and cleaned out their estate, lo and behold, I guess they liked it so much or thought it was too nice that they never used it, which kind of is a disappointment, but it's also a reminder that when you make things for other people, that it's not necessarily going, you know, they might treat it like an heirloom and use it cautiously. Some people won't appreciate it at all, and then some other people will just go to Goodwill and donate it. And it's kind of like, okay. So then I make rugs for the most part off of my felt loom, but this is actually, these are lap size blankets, and they're all reversible. I tend to have ADD, so when I start laying something on, I end up starting with one color, and I'll run out of that color and I'll lay another color on. So they actually have, when I make them, they usually have 3 layers to make them thick enough and solid enough to not look holey. And they have 2 sides. So this side here has sparkle and stuff in it, and very, very abstract. Almost all of them are abstract because I'm not into making things look exactly so. I have had some felted pieces, particularly Nuno felting, that I wet felted yarns on it, and sometimes the yarn had beads and stuff like that, but even then, my designs have always been abstract. So the outside of it is a much brighter green, autumn shades of orange, brown, and touches of red. I'm looking at it through the screen here, and it's not really picking up quite the colors that are on them. And so I have a whole pile of them like that. When I do a rug, I end up going with 4 layers so that they're nice and sturdy. And I have experimented with using kind of like rug canvas kind of stuff, but I didn't like how those looked, and I didn't like how the edges were, so it wasn't really my favorite thing. And then these yarns in the back are the colors. I'm for sure going to use the blues and the fuchsias and reds. And I'm kind of debating about going with these shades here, or adding that into it, or going with the gold. So that will be my next one, because every winter I feel the cold more and more, and in Maryland it's not great. So that's when I design a new blanket. And this one here, I've kind of decided that I'm going to go ahead and work in the log cabin style, like the one that I just finished. And I'm going to do it 3-toned, but have multiple skeins. And these are usually skeins that are not next to the skin, or they might have a slight flaw in it, or something. And this one right here, or they might have too much trash, like that one there. And I will just pick it out as I knit, and I don't care. This one here, I ended up with a few spots that wouldn't take dye, and even after re-dyeing it, it wouldn't take dye. And most of that has to do with the type of fiber that I have. Sometimes the mohair and the wool do not take dye the same way. And then there's some fibers that just won't take the dye at all, even using the same thing and the same strength. So it's kind of what it is. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it gave you a few ideas. And I'm on Withers Wool. I'm actually open this weekend from 11 to 2 if you'd like to come out and actually touch and handle fibers. If not, you can find me on both of my Etsy pages, Withers Wool and Art Weaving. Thank you very much for watching.